Hey, it's Andrew here with another KeyForge deck review, and this one is also from a tournament that I went to earlier today, and but it's not one that I played, so it's one that actually my older daughter, who's 10 years old, played, but it is my deck, and so she had saved up $12 to pay for being in this tournament, but there's a guy in our local meta who's from France, really nice guy, and he had some French decks, including a couple sealed ones, and she got super interested and talked him into trading with her, and I really tried to make sure he felt like he didn't have to do that, but he seemed, happy that she was interested in having a French deck. So it worked out really well. And so what she ended up doing is saying, "Okay, Dad, can I the deck that I open and play with will be yours after the tournament, but and then you give me a different sealed deck, which I will trade with him." So she has now a French deck, which maybe I'll put on here sometime. But this one she played with. It's called Greenseam, the Bandit of Knives. It has Shadows, Brobnar, and Mars, and I'm pretty excited about it. And I'll tell you, the one of the things that was really fun was when somebody came up to me in the middle of the tournament and said, your daughter managed to do a Key Abduction combo to forge a second key in the same turn and win. That was pretty crazy. And so that made me excited about the content of the deck, but also just really proud of her for figuring that out and managing to maneuver the pieces to pull that off. So good job to her. She ended up 2-2, same as me, and same as my other daughter in the tournament. But I think her piloting skills still have some ways to go, and I think this deck probably could have done better than that. We'll see. I played it against her French deck actually after we got home, and then also took it for a spin online and um, managed to played it in competitive against what seemed like a pretty good deck and managed to win uh, through some trickery where I was behind. I had a terrible opening hand, really didn't think I could win, and decided to stick with it and managed to pull it off in a pretty crazy way, which didn't involve Key Abduction, but I'll mention later. Um, so anyway, so this is Greenseam, the Bandit of Knives, and let's get started. So we'll start with Brobnar. We have Blood Money, great. Get 2 amber for killing something. Then we have Follow the Leader, and Follow the Leader is a really good card. I'm excited to see it. There's only one of it in here, but that's okay. We it lets us do some stuff, and we have a bunch of other cards that you'll see that outside of Brobnar that have good effects that work decently with this. So this is a good card in this deck, and I'm happy to have it. It lets your other creatures from other houses fight on your Brobnar turn. We have Loot the Bodies. I haven't gotten good play out of this yet, although there's definitely good potential for it in the deck. I just haven't seen it work out really well, but good card if you can blow things up, and you should be able to. We have Take That Smarty Pants, gain an amber, and then if your opponent has 3 or more Logos cards in play, you steal 2. So it's not a bad card either way, and if you play it in the right circumstances, stealing 2 is fantastic. I mean, that's a 5 amber swing there. Next we have Cannon, artifact that exhausts to deal 2 damage to a creature. That's good. And Mighty Javelin, which gains you an amber when you play it, and then has Omni sacrifice it to deal 4 damage to a creature. So good, some direct damage in there. Then we have Screech Bomb, which is an artifact with Omni that sacrifices to make your opponent lose 2 amber. So that's pretty good as well. We have a Bumpsy that can also make our opponent lose an amber. So really stacking up the amber loss here for our opponents. That's good. And then Bumpsy's a solid 5 power creature once that's done. Next we have Earthshaker. When you play Earthshaker, you destroy each creature with power 3 or lower. There are quite a few creatures actually in this deck that will be affected by this. So It has some potential backlash, and there are certainly some circumstances where I think it would make sense to just discard Earthshaker. But so far, it's been able to work out pretty well. And if your opponent has a lot of, small elusive creatures, this is a great way to handle them. Then we have Ganger Chieftain, who when you play him, you can ready him fight with a neighboring creature. That's strong. It's fun. And Headhunter, 5 power, and he fights and gains 1 if he survives. Then we have Blood of Titans, which gains you an amber when you play it and upgrades a creature to give it +5 power. And we've already seen some good targets for that. I mean, Headhunter's a good target. It means you can keep him alive and fighting longer. Any of these are decent targets. And there's some other stuff as well that ends up being good targets that we'll see later. So anyway, good. This is a pretty good upgrade. I'm glad to see it. All right, now on to Mars. So I mentioned before we have Key Abduction. And by the way, I think it's a good Brobnar spread. There's nothing like particularly incredible in there, except I think Follow the Leader is great. Okay, sorry, yeah. So on to Mars. We have we'll start with Key Abduction, which gains you an amber. You return each Mars creature to its owner's hand, and then you can forge a key at +9 current cost, reduced by 1 amber for each card in your hand. So, whew, that's a lot, but all the Mars cards go back to hands. You can forge as a result of playing this, but if you do, it's going to cost you +9, which by default means we're up to 15 now. But then 1 less for each card in your hand. So if you have a bunch of Mars cards on the board, you might be able to do this and actually get a forging in. But otherwise, you're probably going to be paying a lot for it, and so whether this is good or not depends on the situation. But I mean, pulling each Mars creature back to your hand and getting the amber, that's probably not bad anyway. All right, we have Soft Landing, which makes the next creature or artifact you play this turn interplay ready. This deck has a lot of artifacts you're going to see. It's actually only 15 creatures overall and 10 artifacts, which is a lot. But they're okay. So you'll see. Okay, so we have Combat Pheromones, which gains you an amber when you play it, and then has Omni sacrifice itself, and you can use up to 2 other Mars cards this turn. Crystal Hive is an artifact that exhausts and says for the remainder of the turn you gain an amber each time a creature reaps. You already gain an amber each time a creature reaps, so this doubles your amber generation from reaping. That's pretty good. And you'll see we have a bunch of creatures with reap effects, so even better. We have Feeding Pit, which is an artifact that exhausts to have you discard a creature from your hand, and if you do, gain an amber. This is usually worth doing. You're going to clear out your hand and draw something else. It's great. Mother Gun is an artifact that exhausts to reveal Mars cards from your hand, count them up, and deal that much damage to a creature. I feel like because a lot of the Mars stuff in here actually tended to stick to the board, I didn't get a lot of value out of this, but it wasn't bad, and even if you can just do a couple damage to something, that's usually pretty good. Okay, Ether Spider. I have feelings about Ether Spider, and usually I don't like it, but this is what won me that competitive match on the Crucible earlier. I think he had forged his second key before I forged my first. It was looking bad, but I managed to get board control with Brobnar and then drop Ether Spider on the board. I think he had like 5 amber toward his third key, and I dropped this on the board, and he just never was able to get rid of it. So, yeah, he did have some cool plays that abused it, like a bait and switch, where the amber's going on Ether Spider, so he can just keep drain me down to 3 that way. And he really, it was a lot of good back and forth, but ultimately, without getting rid of the Ether Spider, there was no way that he could get up enough amber to forge. And he was saying at the end, if he had like a mimicry to use my own Key Abduction that I had discarded against me, that would have been pretty fantastic for him. But anyway, it didn't happen, and I managed to win because of that Ether Spider. So pretty crazy. Okay, then we have Grabber Jammer, 4 power, 1 armor, makes keys cost 1 more, and when it fights or reaps, you capture 1. And, if you have this out with Crystal Hive, you're reaping, you're gaining 2, and you're capturing 1. That's pretty fantastic. John Smith is only 2 power, but he has elusive, and when John Smith fights or reaps, you ready a non-agent Mars creature, like your Grabber Jammer. I mean, if you have these 2 out and ready, and a Crystal Hive, you use the Crystal Hive, you reap with the Grabber Jammer, reap with the John Smith, reap with the Grabber Jammer again. You have gained 6 amber and captured 2. It's crazy. Then we have 3 copies of Ixalo Bolter, and that's actually it for the Mars. But the Ixalo Bolter, it's 3 power, and when it fights or reaps, it deals 2 damage to a creature, and if the damage destroys the creature, you purge it. Again, more direct damage. If you're using this with Follow the Leader, you can get some good stuff in. Fight some little things, do some side damage. It can be pretty strong, and if you get to purge stuff, all the better, right? It's just not going to come back. Okay, then we have Bait and Switch. We're into Shadows finally. And this is great. I mean, especially if you are capturing with that Grabber Jammer and then it finally gets beat up and then you can respond with this, it can be pretty great. It's just a good card. Okay, Ghostly Hand, 2 amber, and then if you happen to get to steal that last one, that's extra good. Lights Out, gain an amber, return 2 enemy creatures to their owner's hand. Can be pretty good. Sometimes not, but usually it's pretty good. Don't put 2 Schulers back, but I think that's probably a good idea. Then we have Pawn Sacrifice, gain an amber, sacrifice a friendly creature. If you do, deal 3 damage to 2 creatures. Great. Again, more direct damage here, and I like having that direct damage. We have 2 copies of Seeker Needle, more direct damage. These are such little plinks that I don't think it's that fantastic, but it's okay. Special Delivery, 1 gain an amber when you play it, and then it has Omni. You sacrifice it to deal 3 damage to a flank creature, and if you destroy it with that damage, you purge it. So another direct damage and purge thing here. That's 4 direct damage and purge effects, and a lot of direct damage effects in this deck. Then we have Fagin, who is 3 power, elusive, and when Fagin reaps, I haven't got to use this yet, but when Fagin reaps, you return an urchin from play or from your discard pile to your hand. And so, of course, then we have a couple of urchins coming up. I haven't got to do this yet, but I really look forward to getting to play an urchin from my hand, use Pawn Sacrifice to kill it, and deal 3 damage to 2 enemy creatures, reap with the Fagin, pull the urchin back in my hand, and drop it back again and steal again. I mean, there's a lot of cool possibilities there. Then we have Dodger, 5 power, fights and steals 1. Good, that's good stuff. Umbra, 2 power, skirmish, fight, steal 1. These are great targets for Follow the Leader, right? And then finally those 2 urchins. So I have seen more urchins with Fagin, and I think that's great. But these 2 are good. Compared to the deck that I ended up playing with, the Shadows here just has so much more in the way of actually just stealing and controlling Amber. You have good Amber control in the Mars setup as well as strong Amber ramping with the Crystal Hive, and then decent board control on the Brobnar side. So this was a really fun deck to play. The couple times I played with it, I'm excited to have it and get to mess around with it some more. And I hope you enjoyed this as well. And keep forging keys.